All right, so today what we're going to talk about is probate. Probate and a little bit about how it relates to real estate. So a lot of times when someone passes on, right, a person passes on, they always have stuff. Like they have things. And what do you do with the things after they pass? And sometimes what they may have is a house. One of the things they have is a house. And then there's two ways. Well, there's three ways, but there's really two main ways that most when a person transitions or passes on, what they have is either they have a will or they don't have a will. All right, and the third one is the bonus. Show you what the third one is. All right, so in this particular one, this is a probate proceedings with a will. Someone has a will. So let's just um, say mom passed on. Mom passed on, right? See, mom passed on, and then she's leaving a house. She got a house. She got a couple of kids, some daughters and some sons, and she wrote a will. She's like, look, this is what you do with the house. Everybody gets this, everybody gets that, and you have to literally put that out and process that. You got to process the will. So to process the will, you go to surrogate court or probate court. And what happens is they go and they say you got to fill out all these papers. And people be like, what the hell? What am I gonna, how am I gonna fill out all these papers? And most of the time, they might tell you that you should get an attorney or somebody to fill out the papers. Technically, anyone can fill out petition papers, court papers for probate. Anyone can do that. It's not necessarily that you have to hire an attorney. Shout out to my attorneys out there. I mean, you can, but if you know, the thing is, if you know how to do it, you don't really need an attorney. But the thing is that some cases get complicated, and I would say at some cases, definitely you probably need an attorney or whatever. But if the family is not fighting and there's no, what's the word? There's no dispute. If there's no dispute and the family's not fighting and everybody's in agreement, that's what this is about. It's simple. If there's no dispute and everybody's like, okay, we in agreement, cool. But if it gets complicated and it's like somebody wants to contest the will, or they feel they should get something and they're not getting it, the kids is fighting, then it gets a little hairy. You might want to get an attorney at that point, right? Because you got to lawyer up. Because if it's, and that's so sad sometimes, brother versus sister. Well, I just can't agree. You know what I'm saying? But in some cases, it actually does happen. That's why they need a court. So if you go to probate, and this one is a will. So number one, there's a petition. The petition, and there's the petitioner. So the person who's the executor of the will is filling out the petition. So you got all these papers. So my state is New York. So in NY, well, New York City, you fill out the petition, and sometimes you can do this online. You can fill it out online, and then you go in. But either way, there's a petition, and you have to fill it out. Basically, you're saying that I am the executor of the estate. Estate is what the person leaves behind. I'm the executor, and what I want to do is execute this will. And be like, okay, where's your paperwork? Fill out all your information, give that in. Then you got your brothers and sisters who are like, yeah, it's cool. We're not contesting. There's no dispute. Right? So if there's no dispute, then they got this thing called waiver of process. So you got the petition, then you got the waiver of process, consent to probate. So the brothers and sisters have to give their consent. They got to sign off that they're willing to let you be the executor of the entire estate. So you do the waiver of process, send that in. There's a few other papers here like affidavit of comparison. Then there's a witness to the will. So you probably have to have a witness, and the witness is the person that says, yes, I saw the will, it's real, it's not a fake will, it's not manufactured, and it can be good. So once you send that in, they have a few court fees, boom, you're done. All right. Now the next one is a petition when someone doesn't have a will. All right. So mom passed on, same, you got a brother and sister, mom passed on, there's no will. So now the good part is if it gets complicated and the kids are fighting again, hire an attorney. But if it's not like that, if it's not everybody's in agreement, that's where you get an administrator. So you get one person who's the administrator of the estate at that point. Then it's the same thing. So it's even simpler. It's less paperwork. So you do a petition to become an administrator, and then there's still a waiver of consent because the sibling that says, okay, you can be the administrator. So they give you permission to be the administrator. And there's another waiver process, and that's it. All right. So the thing about probates, and to avoid this whole thing, let's say you want to just not do it at all, ever, there's a thing going around. You put everything in a trust, and then the instructions are in a trust. So it never goes to court. Unfortunately, sometimes, nobody gets trust. Not everybody gets a trust. And if you don't have a trust, if you have a trust, great. You have a trust, you put all the instructions in a trustee. You can get an attorney for that. Open up a trust. You can probably do it yourself. You open up a trust, you go in there and get a trust. In the cases that you don't, and a lot of cases, I've seen a lot of cases where some people they don't have anything. So a person passes on and there's no will. So you have to do an administration of the estate. So basically you're speaking up for the person that's deceased. And the reason that someone has to speak, because the things that they own, they still own those things, right? The person that's deceased still owns all of their items, including the house. It's just that they can't sign and they can't speak, at least not to us in the physical realm. They can speak, but not in the physical realm, right? So that person still owns. So someone has to get appointed to speak for the deceased. And that's where the administration, if there's no will, but if there's a will, that means the deceased left instructions. And they like, look, you carry out these instructions after I'm gone. And that's good in the instruction. Then the next level is the trust, where the instructions are inside of the trust. So you never even have to go to court. All right. So I usually, if you got any questions on this type of stuff, I do a few of these and I've done a few. Or if you ever need the assistance, just leave your questions and I'll help you out, answer those questions for you. All right. So right now I'm about to do one. This one I'm doing here is a petition for probate to get they call it letters of testimony. The letter of testimony is when the court says, okay, here's your letter to prove that you're the executor, basically giving you permission that you can do what it says. All right. So if you ever have to go to a bank, or you ever have to sell the house, or do things like that, you have to get permission from the court. So there has to be some type of permission from the court that says, hey, you can do these things that you're asking to do. All right. So anyway, so the one that I'm doing now is a petition with a will, right? So the situation is mom passed on, right? And there's like siblings. So there's a couple of daughters, and there's one daughter who's the executor. And so now her sisters are saying, yes, we don't contest the will. The will is fine. We all in agreement. I know what I'm getting. You know what you're getting. We all good. And so we have to do a petition for the executor for the will. And that's what I'm doing right here. And it's pretty cool because these things happen and it's part of the process. And if you ever, and in real estate, a lot of times, how this connects to real estate, how it connects to real estate is that sometimes you inherit a house, right? So let's say so mom passes on or grandma passes on, someone passes on and they don't want that property. They don't want nothing to do with it. You know what I'm saying? Like they just like I don't want the house. Sometimes it's out of state, sometimes it's too far, sometimes it's not something that they want to deal with that person who's in charge because they got their own life and they got their own kids. So that property that's inherited or left behind could be a nuisance. And that's where you as an investor, if you ever looking for a lead, right, to get a house as an investor, you can step in now. Well, if you don't want the house or you don't want to deal with it, then I can help you out. I'll take it off your hands. Or the house is like far and it needs work and it's all messed up. And at that point, if it's like that, then the kids might not want it. They may just want the money. And it could still be a good lead. It depends on the situation. So this is why probate, when people pass on, is related to real estate because again, there's an item that's left behind. And if the item is a house, the question will always be, well, what are you going to do with the home? What's the thing? Right? And then sometimes some people call a real estate agent, they get a real estate agent and put it on the market, put a for sale sign and just sell it on the market. And sometimes they call an investor and say, hey, we just want to do this quick. Sometimes real estate agent is a longer process. So when an investor, hey, I just want to do this quick, maybe cash really fast, sell the house, and everybody goes about the rest of their day, right? So it all depends on what the the ones that are responsible now, what is it that they want to do? Right? So usually where the investor comes in, if it has to be done quick, they don't want to do a lot of work. They don't want to fix the house to put on the market. They don't want to deal with a real estate agent. Hey, just let's just do this fast, right? And then you, on other cases, you can get a real estate agent, put it on the market, maybe clean it up a little bit, put a sign in front of the house. Right? I always think of a real estate agent as then the whole world knows everyone on the neighborhood knows you're selling your house. So there's a big sign in front of the house. And some people don't want that. Like I don't want a big sign in front of the house. So that's where a real estate investor could come in, where you don't need the big sign in front of the house. You know what I mean? And what else? And I almost forgot. You gotta have a notary when you do all these paperwork. Usually, so in the court, if you go to the courthouse, whatever floor where the probate is, they usually have a free of service notary where you can do the notary inside the courthouse. So that's usually the case. If you're doing it online, though, you're probably gonna need to get a notary, right? Um, Either way, yeah, you need a notary. That's an important piece. You gotta have a notary to stamp all those papers. All right. And what else? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, and I probably am. If I'm missing anything, you could leave it, leave what I'm missing in the comments. Uh, but it's never an easy thing to talk about when someone passes on because it could be a sad time for the family. But either way, these things have to be done, and someone has to do it. So, all right. Hopefully this helps. Any questions, just leave it in the comments. And I'll see you on the next training. All right. Go out there and be great.